tonight. Agents came here, SWAT teams raided the business, confiscated everything inside the business. They say they have been investigating the business for some time now.
They were charged under state racketeering laws, the kind most often associated with organized crime. The perpetrators celebrated mixtape DJs Drama and Don Cannon.
Investigators say they've collected at least 50,000 of these illegal CDs. From here, they'll take them to evidence and then eventually they'll be destroyed. Authorities seized all of the company's CDs, computers, recording equipment, money, bank statements, and even their cars.
You understand how serious that is? That nigga's not really paying attention, man.
Looking back at it, who would have known that the arrest of 2 DJs will mark an end to the golden age of hip-hop, the mixtape era, where one of hip-hop's most sacred practices that can be traced back to the very origins of rap got buried seemingly overnight. Simply put, there is no rap without mixtapes. The literal spread of hip-hop comes from the popularity, exposure, and economy forged from these tapes that came from cassettes sold out of trunks to CDs to downloads from streaming sites. Some of the greatest rappers ever made their name in what was known as the mixtape era in rap. That is until the music industry literally kicked down the doors with the use of SWAT to put a stop to it. So today we're going to look into the origins of mixtapes and its influence in the growth of rap to see how RICO, that was supported by the music industry, ended up putting a nail in the coffin of hip-hop's most dominant era. There's simply no way to break down the extensive history of mixtapes and hip-hop in one video. But to make it a little bit easier to digest, we're going to break down the mixtape age into 4 separate eras. Live show mixtapes, the blends era, the exclusive mixtapes era, and artist-led mixtapes, which are probably the ones that most people are familiar with today. This is going to be a long journey, so make sure y'all go ahead and grab something to get comfortable with, and let's dive into this. The origins of mixtapes were traced back to the very beginnings of rap, back in the 1970s, where instead of like today's mixtapes, where they're basically like albums, they were just tapes of mixed music that were curated in a seamless audio experience. A lot of people say that mixtapes started with the godfather of hip-hop, DJ Kool Herc, in a party that he threw in New York. Those party DJs would later develop into cultural phenoms. From the 1970s through the 80s, the live performances flooded the streets of New York in each borough, and DJs started to break out everywhere, like DJ Breakout or DJ Hollywood, the Funky Four, where these DJs would get in tandem with MCs and record their live performances on cassette tapes and move them out of the trunks of their cars and through the neighborhoods. Eventually, these live mixes would start getting passed around to radio stations back in the day, and some of these DJs would even become radio personalities. As the popularity grew, these tapes would start spreading from New York to the rest of the world, and they would grow alongside the technology. DJs like Brucey B and some of those influences became inspiration for many to follow, later creating a path for big names in the industry like P. Diddy and Bad Boy. New York will have leaders from each neighborhood and borough with different styles and different ways that they created their own tapes. But these live performances were just scratching the surface, and others would start to elevate with a new style. DJs like Kid Capri and others like Ron G would take it to another level, helping usher in the next level and era for mixtapes, called the blend mixtape era, where they would take R&B artists and vocals and put them over hip-hop tracks, and vice versa, creating a blend between the two sounds that some will call remixes. Those remixes would start to get pushed by mainstream platforms like radio stations, but also some of these DJs would start making connections inside of the industry, and these names would even get onto these prominent platforms, like the host of Yo MTV Raps, Fab Five Freddy. The tape wars would start running in the 90s, birthing some of the most known DJs of the era, like Tony Toka and DJ Premier or DJ Mr. C. And these DJs were known for breaking some really big MCs like Biggie and Mobb Deep. As these DJs and MCs started rising to prominence, shows like Hot 97 and other radio stations will blow up even more, showcasing some of the biggest mixes. The mixtape fever would start to leave New York and spread throughout the coast. West Coast names would start to rise like Dr. Dre or DJ Warren G, who would introduce the world to a young Snoop in his early mixtapes. The trend wouldn't just stop in the West Coast though, where popular DJs would start hosting mixtapes all over the place, like in Houston, where DJ Screw would popularize his chopped and screw style, or in Memphis, where 3 6 Mafia popped up, ushering in that trap sound that's popular today, that was first heard on tapes from DJ Paul, Juicy J, and Lord Infamous. That's when these mixes would start to become more of a glorified street album. Record labels would really start to see the benefits of being able to build your presence and popularity throughout these mixtapes, and new DJs would start popping up, ushering in another era of mixtape that broke these exclusive freestyles on these glorified street albums. The benefit of being able to promote a name and test the market before actually backing a studio album paved the way for a lot of artists to get into the game. The rise of radio stations and their influence will also help too, ushering in new DJs like DJ Clue or Funkmaster Flex. Clue had became known for his smooth mixes, but really started blowing up after he started getting exclusive tracks from some of the biggest names in the game. Flex has started rising to prominence DJing in clubs, but also started to get known for his freestyles where he would allow other artists to get on popular beats, which eventually paved the way for him to get his own show on Hot 97. This is one of the golden eras of rap in my opinion, just because it was really about bars back at the very beginning, and a lot of rappers were really just telling their stories, and the hunger to achieve greatness really showed throughout their music. The growth of DJs and their industry connections paved the way to normalize this new style of mixtapes, where these exclusive freestyles and exclusive tracks were included on them, and a lot of times if they did good, some of these tracks would make it onto these artists' albums. Many in hip-hop first got a start on these mixtapes, and if I had the time to name them all, I really would. But popular artists like Fabulous, Dipset or the Diplomats, and maybe one of the most important, 50 Cent and his crew G-Unit, really blew up off this era of mixtapes. And 50 Cent's success after that was first heard on a mixtape, Guess Who's Back, showed the industry just how much you could do off a mixtape. There's a lot of arguments of who's the greatest mixtape artist, but you have to throw 50 Cent's name in the hat, who him and his crew G-Unit put out so many mixtapes around that time, and paved the way for a new era of mixtapes. These artist-led mixtapes that most of the time were hosted by very popular DJs. This was also around the time where hip-hop would start going into more of a digital era, where websites would pop up and a lot of people would buy their mixtapes from online or just download them. This helped pave the way for more artist and group-based mixtapes. None of them may be more monumental than the run Lil Wayne had in the early 2000s. I done fried many a computer around that time, downloading mixtapes and songs from LimeWire. But even Lil Wayne's rise to the self-proclaimed best rapper alive ran parallel with that era of mixtape and the digital revolution in hip-hop that changed everything. And just as the old cassette tapes died for the rise of CDs, those CDs started phasing out for the rise of digital platforms, but also was the first signal for the end of the mixtape era as it was known. With around the same time, one of the most famous DJs, DJ Drama, ended up being the center of drama, becoming a martyr of sorts for the downfall of hip-hop mixtapes. DJ Drama also called himself Mr. Thanksgiving, which was a real fitting name because the economy around mixtapes ended up feeding a lot of families, especially the CD versions, where bootleg and DJ official tapes were everywhere, from malls to barbershops to even the shelves of popular stores like FYE and Best Buy. Little industries were built off of those mixtapes. But around that time in the early 2000s, the record industry started taking a dip, so they made a move to crack down on what they called illegal CDs, headed by the RIAA, better known as the Recording Industry Association of America, who teamed up with police to collect evidence to stop the music piracy, which record companies saw as a direct and dire threat to their business. With DJ Drama being one of the most known DJs around that time, he ended up getting put in the scope, along with another prominent DJ, DJ Cannon, who was a part of his group, The Affiliates. Drama rose to fame, being a part of some of the biggest mixtapes in history, hosting his Gangsta Grill series, with some of the hits like The Dedication 2 with Lil Wayne, or Trap or Die with Jeezy, or The Movie from Gucci Mane, all staples in hip-hop history. mixtapes that were so good, they pretty much were known as albums. He eventually got so big that his work started getting bootlegged, but it didn't really matter to him because his mixtape operation was making allegedly around $100K a month, and he also was getting deals from record labels like Atlantic that were approximately worth around $400 to $500K. Working alongside these labels also allowed him to make albums the legit way with clearance that the labels could help push and market their artists. So in a way, it would seem like mixtapes were becoming a part of the industry, but some of the issues came in where a lot of these mixtapes didn't have clearance or used other people's beats. So in a way, a lot of the mixtapes in that era could never really be legit unless they had original beats or the backing of a label. But around this time, the rise of sites like Mix Unit, Dat Piff, and live mixtapes started taking over, and these sites would pay DJs and artists straight up a flat rate to be able to create these mixtapes, which spurred on its own set of issues, like rappers not being able to get royalties from their mixtapes and music later on, and a whole list of other things. Record labels weren't fans of artists and DJs getting paid directly without the labels getting their own cut, and the popularity of some mixtapes like the Dedication 2 that actually ended up charting only made the record labels a little bit more hesitant. So if they couldn't get their hand in the pot, they had to start plotting a way to end it. That brings us to 2007, where a SWAT team from Fulton County and their backup from Clayton County pulled outside the DJ Drama studio in Atlanta. Officers bursted in with their guns drawn to serve warrants for RICO, which is also known as a racketeering, influenced, and corrupt organization law, a charge that's normally used for crime bosses. But this time, they put their targets on a hip-hop DJ, and they confiscated all of his recording equipment, computers, cars, and boxes full of CDs, while arresting DJ Drama and DJ Cannon. A rep from the RIAA, Matt Kilgo, was said that it helped alongside the raid to stop what they thought was a major source of piracy. But police on the scene would note that they found no drugs and no weapons, which was really uncommon, which also sparked a lot of conspiracies for some and made it appear deeper than originally believed, because although they did break copyright laws, they simply weren't stealing from labels. They had their own distribution system that obviously labels were okay with because some labels were paying them. Now, of course, the use of uncleared samples and beats for sure broke some laws, but not to the extent that it required a RICO. That day, from then on, will be known as D-Day in hip-hop, and mixtapes would never be the same from that point on. After the well-publicized sting operation, DJ Drama and DJ Cannon eventually got released on a $100K bond and went right back to a studio to promote their upcoming project and label release. This attempted takedown will only make DJ Drama and DJ Cannon more popular in hip-hop culture, with free Drama t-shirts popping up everywhere, also helping DJ Drama set up for his next upcoming CD that he was dropping alongside a label. But with the arrest, it changed the outlook on mixtapes for a lot of DJs who thought if they could do it to Drama, it could be me next. It was effective enough to deter so many from following in that same business model. Mixtapes were their own economy, and DJs became bona fide A&Rs that labels learned to use to test artists' records on the street level so they could go back to their higher-ups and show results. There was no issue when stores like FYE, Target, or Best Buy were selling these same mixtapes and profiting off this unclear music. Also, the industry weren't the only ones with an issue. Artists also had issues, of course, like not being able to negotiate royalties and not having official numbers on sales, even though the amount that they did as far as creating the songs were pretty much the same. Many rappers either avoided or spoke down on the mixtape game. The politics and economics of mixtapes caused a lot of turbulence, and some of the industry around that time speculated that things would have to change. The mixtapes would either have to move to a more underground level or become more of a legitimate licensed product, which is exactly what did happen. Arresting Drama was just a warning shot from the industry. Mixtapes are a part of the foundation of hip-hop. From the 70s, before rap was played on radio stations, people had live recordings on cassettes that were flipped and sold, which turned into the 80s and 90s, where they were transformed throughout the years, but always was used to spread hip-hop. As the independent labels were getting swallowed up, a void was left that more polished mixtapes tried to fill. creating a high-stakes game for labels trying to recoup on their investments. But what was left for the smaller artists? Well, that's where as the 2000s progressed, a new era of rap started rising, the blog rap era, paving the way for some of the most known artists at the top today, including the big three. If y'all end up liking this video, we'll make sure to do a part 2 and follow the shift into the digital era of rap. But this video was already long enough, so that's all I got for y'all today. Like always, man, it's your boy Stone Astro. If you end up liking this video, go ahead and hit the like button for your boy. Make sure y'all go ahead and sub up if you aren't already, and show some love down in the comment section, man. It's nice being able to hear y'all opinions on all of this. Y'all definitely add a lot to the conversation. But we out of here, man, so go ahead and drop that outro.